The Iran-Contra affair was a weaponry deal where the U.S. traded missiles and arms in order to free some Americans that were held hostage in Lebanon. We also used the funds from the arms to support armed conflict in Nicaragua. This controversial deal and political scandal threatened to take down Ronald Reagan's position as President of the United States. This scandal was also known as Iran-Gate and the Iran-Contra scandal. In Nicaragua, a socialist movement called the Sandinistas seized power through a revolution in Nicaragua in 1979. They overthrew Anastasio Somoza Debayle, ending the Somoza dynasty, which had lasted previously for 44 years. The administration, fearful of the spread of socialism throughout Latin America, eventually backed the Contras, whom Reagan referred to as the moral equal of the founding fathers of the United States, who sought to overthrow this revolutionary regime. In 1979, power also changed hands in Iran when the United States saw more communist uprisings and governments in Latin America, as well as an increase in tension and the growth of Islamic extremism in parts of the Middle East. In 1979, in Iran, a revolt led by Islamic leader Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini overthrew Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Ayatollah Khomeini sought to remove all Western influences within the country and establish an Islamic republic. In an act of deliberate aggression against the United States, the new Iranian government captured and held 52 Americans for 444 days. Many historians agree that the inability of the Carter administration to resolve this crisis was instrumental to the election of Ronald Reagan in 1980. Negotiations were, in fact, secretly underway, but the release of the hostages would not come until Reagan was sworn into office in January 1981.
The United States broke off relations with Iran and instituted a series of economic sanctions in an attempt to weaken the theocratic government. The radical Islamic movement overthrew the U.S.-backed government. Because the revolutionary government was unfriendly towards the United States and potential allied with the Soviet Union, the administration tied this to strengthen elements within Iran, a policy that became much more complicated when, in 1984, Iranian-backed Lebanese terrorist group named Hezbollah seized 7 American hostages, including William F. Buckley Jr., CIA chief in Beirut. Reagan's stance: the Reagan Doctrine, saying we must not break our faith with those who are risking their lives on every continent from Afghanistan to Nicaragua to defy Soviet aggression and secure rights which have been ours since birth. Support for freedom fighters is self-defense. In March 1985, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, member of the National Security Council, proposed to National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane the possibility of using third-party donors like Saudi Arabia and Brunei in the Middle East and Panama in Latin America as intermediaries between the United States, Iran, and the Contras. In April 1985, President Reagan called the President of Honduras, Roberto Suazo Cordova, and insisted that the United States was committed to helping the Contras, even if Congress would not provide financial support. In August 1985, Reagan approved an arms deal to allow Israel to sell U.S.-made weapons to Iran. The profits were then sent to support the Contras.
The operation, known as Enterprise, raised about $16 million in profits from arms sales to Iran. Over $3.5 million was then sent to the Contras in Nicaragua. In return for the arms shipments, Iran agreed to broker the release of the hostages. However, the exchange for all the hostages did not occur as planned, and the release was sporadic. In August 1986, North met with General Manuel Noriega, the military dictator of Panama and a known drug trafficker, to organize an arrangement between the United States and Panama. In a message to the National Security Advisor, John Poindexter, North stated that Noriega suggested that if the United States helped clean up his image and lifted a ban on foreign missile sales, he would undertake to take care of the Sandinista leadership for us. North had been fired by the administration in November 1986 as the story of the deal with Noriega became public. In November 1986, North shredded documents and attempted to obstruct the Joint Committee investigation. This then led to 41 days of hearings. On May 5, 1987, the world tuned in to watch the joint hearings of the House Select Committee to investigate convert germ transactions with Iran and the Senate Select Committee on Secret Military Assistance to Iran in the Nicaraguan opposition would soon be known as the Iran-Contra hearings. The actions of Iran and Contra policies were covert, fraud, and scornful. They told neither the Secretary of State, the Congress, nor the American people of their actions. When exposure of the documents was endangered, they destroyed official documents and lied to cabinet officials, to the public, and to elected representatives in Congress. They testified that they even withheld key facts from the president, naming several members of the Reagan administration as having been directly involved in the scheme. Following the congressional investigation, numerous members of the Reagan administration were charged with providing false testimony, conspiracy, and diversion. In January 1989, Oliver North was charged with 16 counts. The final report stated that Reagan must bear ultimate responsibility.